Hi, people, and welcome once again for Moral High Ground, where I'm talking about what's morally right to you and to the rest of the world. And so, I'm about to talk about abominations. I'm talking about a flaw of mankind today that is still active. And I'm talking about mutants and radioactive things going down. So, yeah, a lot, because I usually don't talk about this stuff. But anyway, I'm talking about Chernobyl. And I found this video, and shout out to the people that made this video. But yeah, I'm talking about this Chernobyl thing, and what happened was the effects of um, all the things that happened in Chernobyl. What happened with the species there, the people, and things. And if you don't know what that is, it's gonna be explained soon. But if you like my stuff, just go on and subscribe, share. I got a lot of new projects coming up, and at the same time, just leave a comment and let me know what it is you want me to talk about. If anything you got a question about on something I talked about, then don't be afraid to leave it once again in the comments. I kind of go around a full circle. But anyway, here we go with today's video, and then I will leave the creator of this video in the descriptions below, so you can go check out their stuff and just see for yourself.
There are still crazy things going on in Chernobyl to this day, decades after the explosion of the reactor at the nuclear power plant in April 1986. Now, animals and nature have rightfully been affected in a big way. According to a study that began in 1991, the organisms were
That actually was some kind of, had nothing to do with Chernobyl. That creature that you just saw is supposed to be a hairless bear. It's some kind of dying species or something, but that's not a Chernobyl thing. I've seen that before.
responsible for decomposition and replenishing organic matter back into the ecosystem, such as insects, fungi, and microbes, are presenting symptoms of radioactive contamination, which isn't too shocking, but still isn't good. One of the most prominent areas of this effect has been called the Bloody Red Forest. It's a set of woodland where all the pine trees turned a blood red color right after the meltdown, and then died not long after.
Now, I always say something about like abandoned buildings and trying to get abandoned buildings rebuilt, or not destroyed, not demolished, and repaired, and be able to put people back in these places. But here in Chernobyl, radiation, there's nuclear waste just pretty much all over the place, and there's no way to clean it up. I have an idea or two based off of my soil theory idea, but it's gonna be decades even before that starts to show effect on the soil itself or the land itself. Because as you'll see, there's radiation in places where there shouldn't be.
Now, it's pretty, don't get me wrong, but it's completely unnatural and has caused some issues. Now, 15 to 20 years after they were exposed to radiation and died, these trees were not decaying, when at this point, normal trees would be long gone. Due to this, scientists decided to run some tests by filling specially prepared garbage bags with leaf litter from uncontaminated areas, making sure there were no insects or decomposers present, and then leaving the bags out in both contaminated and uncontaminated wooded areas in the exclusion zone for nearly a year to check the decomposition rates of the leaves. Now, bags left in uncontaminated areas were as expected, with normal rates of decomposition between 70 to 90% of the leaves decomposing. But the leaves in contaminated areas retained 60% of their original weight, indicating much less activity by natural decomposers.
That should actually be a good thing. That should be a positive thing that they found something when it comes to, and those are really messed up because it's radiation, but it's like, it should be a good thing that you can have a plant that won't die, and trees are supposed to be dead, leaves that are supposed to be dead, but yet they still hold their shape, their form, and still able to do whatever they do. So they have to actually study that. I think that would be a good experiment to study on, especially when it comes to vegetation and any forms of I know once again radiation is a bad thing, but any forms of trying to make like an organic garden to eat stuff, to keep the food lasting long, because people always talk about natural disasters. You see the whole commercials with them selling box food and buckets of food and all this crap to be weary about of oncoming doom that's supposed to occur. So that's a research that needs to be studied more. If it can stop trees from dying, we might have the biggest, baddest ozone layer rebuilt through the folly of what happened in Chernobyl.
Now, this suggests that the radiation exposure has a detrimental effect on the ability of the Chernobyl ecosystem to replenish itself with nutrients, which could be causing the stunting of tree growth that has been recorded. But with this comes another problem. The leaves in contaminated areas stayed intact and dry even after almost a year, and this could present a fire hazard, which in turn presents a danger of radioactive contaminants being spread outside the exclusion zone by forest fires. So that is scary and just not good at all. Then
Well, that's if you have some idiot in there smoking a cigarette or something.
and there's how this affected all the animals. According to a 2011 study in Biological Conservation, Chernobyl caused genetic mutations in plants and animals increased by a factor of 20. Among breeding birds in that region, rare species suffered disproportionate effects from the explosion's radiation compared to common species. Now, further research is needed to understand how the increased mutations affect species' reproductive rates, population size, genetic diversity, and other survival factors, but it definitely affected animals in a negative way.
There was a show, I don't know how many years ago now, I think it's still on maybe, I'm not sure. I don't watch the main cable shows anymore. But there was a show I used to like, River Monsters. And I thought that guy was kind of like a hero because he went into a couple towns where they say there was a river monster or a lake monster, and he pulls it up, and like one episode there was this giant ass stingray in a tiny ass lake. And it picked it up, it was like 112 pounds and all this. So what made him cool was he went to Chernobyl and he had to wear a suit and get some tests. He had to get all these things to prove him to get into Chernobyl. And when he got in there and he went to the river, he found out there was a lot of giant catfish. And that little scene they just showed a little while ago, the giant catfish is actually what he was doing down there. It's amazing though, if there's catfish, more animals than catfish in the water there. And those were the only fish that got affected, was the catfish. So, of course you wouldn't want to eat it, but I remember him testing it, and when he tested it, there wasn't no radiation in the fish or the water or whatever. It was just like a little mild forms of any kind of little trace of radiation in the water, but not really in the fish itself. But who knows, you don't know how, genetics work. Hell, we don't know how some of us look the way we do. But we do. Even with the parents and stuff, you still know there's something different. So, it's just magic of God in the world, But yeah, so he went to Chernobyl, and that's what he found was just the mutated giant fish. But what this makes this episode real interesting is there's way more than just mutated fish and deer and whatnot. So, it's actually some cool stuff.
In 2016, a study found that the eastern tree frogs in the Chernobyl exclusion zone exhibited different characteristics than their neighboring cousins, and in 2023, another study discovered distinct genetic differences between Chernobyl dogs and dogs living only 10 miles away in Chernobyl City. Now, not all the animals living around Chernobyl are entirely wild, as there are around 900 stray dogs, mostly descended from those left behind when people evacuated the area.
And that's sad. They just left their dogs. And so this is the one thing about this that makes it interesting is they had to leave. They had to leave. It was a life or death situation. There was some radiation stuff blowing up and all that. So it makes sense. And of course, this is Russia, or actually Ukraine, I guess. It's somewhere in between the two. And it's like, it doesn't really make any sense because they left their dogs. Now there's overpopulation of dogs, pretty much is where they're going to go with this. But the thing is, when you see all those abandoned homes in America on these videos, these other videos, you're like, what happened? I mean, a whole town, a whole village, a skyscraper, like, what the hell? Why these people leave? Mansions gone and stuff, and it looked like a disaster hit. But here, a disaster hit, and life goes on, but not with humans. So it's like, sometimes I think the threat that we're supposed to be afraid of isn't really a threat. It's a warning to change. That's just what I'm thinking, And like COVID, for example. everyone's worried about dying and stuff. The percentages was really not what they. I mean, people don't know how to read grids. Let's put it that way, because the grids on the news wasn't accurate. You know, about people's death. People did die, but I don't think it was 100% accurate. At the same time, a lot of people keep claiming COVID's still around, but now they're talking about this monkeypox situation. All I know is, I think disasters. I think plagues, because that's pretty much what the COVID-19 was a plague of some kind, supernature, I guess. But I think all that stuff is just a warning sign to change our ways, to get ourselves back into trying to live more of a healthier, stable life. And that's just my opinion. As for animals, they don't look affected right here. You'll see.
Veterinarians, radiation experts, and volunteers from a group called the Dogs of Chernobyl captured the dogs, vaccinated them against diseases, and tagged them. Now, in addition to the tags, some dogs are fitted with radiation detector collars. Now, the dogs offer a way to map radiation across the Chernobyl exclusion zone and study the ongoing effects of the accident. While scientists generally can't get a close look at individual wild animals in the zone, they can monitor the dogs closely. And they are, of course, radioactive.
It's not funny. It's not funny, but dogs being radioactive, there's a whole bunch of them that they left behind, to where now these dogs are actually populating. And it's funny in a way to me, because it reminds me of some like sci-fi movie or something, where animals like mutated into humans over 100 years later and stuff. And so these dogs are sitting here and they're called the Dogs of Chernobyl. And then let's imagine it like in a future sci-fi movie, they're like giant, and then they're like saying, we're the Dogs of Chernobyl, and they're all soldier looking dog people. I don't know, it just sounds funny as hell to me.
Dogs have increased rates of cataracts because the eyes are the first tissues to show signs of chronic exposure to ionizing radiation. Now, not all is lost on these dogs though, as the unique genetic diversity of these dogs makes them ideal candidates for future studies, seeking to understand the long-term genetic health effects of highly radioactive environments on populations of large mammals, especially in understanding the biological underpinnings of human survival in regions of high and continuous environmental assault, the researchers said. So, I guess that's a plus.
Well, I mean, you can research them and see how it is that they're living out there and surviving, but all them dogs look pretty happy to me. They ain't seen dogs fighting. They didn't look like they was angry or starving or anything. Looks like they found a way to adapt, and that kind of climate and environment, it's just really odd. But yeah, now she's gonna talk about these birds, and it's a little interesting about the birds. It's just all these creatures are interesting as hell, living still in a place where the nuclear waste is.
Then there's the birds. While there are plenty of them in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, 489 different species to be exact, they are examples of animals that still face problems from radiation exposure. A study of barn swallows from 1991 to 2006 indicated birds in the exclusion zone displayed more abnormalities than birds from a controlled sample, including deformed beaks, albinistic feathers, bent tail feathers, and deformed air sacs. Now, birds in the zone had less reproductive success, and these birds
this bird has this beak. It's all twisted and mutated, and that's because of the radiation. You would think that the mutations would be a little bit more, I don't know, like Spider-Man. And get some superpowers, but that's the bull crap they teach us. But this type of mutation has got to be, really hard for this bird. You can't eat nothing of it. However, it's still alive. It's got its own ways, So you got to adapt. I guess it's like a disabled person adapting to not having a limb or not having a body part or something like that. So, yeah.
Often had smaller brains, malformed sperm, and cataracts, presumably as a result of radiation-related genetic mutations. Now, if you are already scared of spiders, these ones will freak you out even more. The spiders here are radioactive as they build their webs to catch their prey. They add to the dangerous environment of the forest. These webs are not like normal spider webs.
See, those of y'all that's afraid of bugs, I think it's really stupid. A lot of people are afraid of bugs, a lot of different bugs. But, you gotta think that you're the bigger being. It's so weird, man, is that people want to be the big dog. They want to be the number one. They think they're so huge, so bigger. They think they're gods and all this. And yet something so tiny, something so meaningless to your day can scare the living hell out of you. I used to catch bugs when I was a kid, put them in jars and stuff, you know. So they really don't bother me. Of course you can touch them. Not everything's going to bite you in the world, you know. It's just, you gotta honestly look at it like, wow, is this thing going to bite me? If that's the case, then you're afraid of everything, because everything bites on this planet. It bites something, you know what I mean? So insects should be the most, they're just really annoying. Let's just put it that way. Spiders too. They're just really annoying, and you know, there's just no point in trying to be afraid of them. Just either you let them go or you step on them.
In fact, they are woven in abstract ways that suggest genetic mutation is at hand. Now, they're also highly radioactive themselves, making them a danger for any non-radioactive.
Now, is it just me, or does she look like a spider here? Look at that. She is a spider lady. Only legs coming out the back. I don't know, I'm just being stupid.
Active animal to touch. Now, who knew spiders could get 100 times scarier? But that's not the only scary mutated animal there. According to Slate in the early 90s, which was just a few years after the incident, radiation levels in the wild boar that died near Chernobyl were more than 2,000 times what's considered safe. And even today, eating animals from inside the exclusion zone is still pretty hazardous, as a person might be exposed to radiation levels that are dozens of times higher than what's safe.
That's crazy. So, there's people still eating these things. And I don't know.
And in 2016, a video went viral of a catfish swimming around the cooling pond of the Chernobyl power plant. Very, very few mutations lead to extra large size, explains University of South Carolina radiation specialist Dr. Timothy Masu. Instead, they grow less efficiently, they're less capable of catching food, and they tend to not live as long. Now that's why it's shocking that it's so large, and I would not want to mess with the fish that big. Then, as of 2015, there had been almost 20,000 cases of thyroid cancer reported in people who were exposed at the time of the incident. And approximately 5,000 of these thyroid cancers are likely attributed to them drinking fresh milk containing radioactive iodine from cows that had eaten contaminated grass in the first few weeks following the incident.
See, this is like, I think they need to make a movie of Chernobyl. I think they need to make one and let everybody see what really happened that day, from the very first person that entered the nuclear power plant to the very first person who went off into the farm to feed these animals, a person that walked the dogs, whatever. And just see, like, the very first school teacher to walk into a school. I mean, not movie, maybe more like a TV series, like a TV series of what happened in Chernobyl. I would watch that and make it one that's like, at least like, I don't know, kind of like back in the day when they made The Stand. There was like, it went on for like 2-3 weeks or something. You kept watching the movie or the show, which is actually a movie considered now, but something like that. So people would actually know what happened over there. You know, yes, we know something, you know, power plant or whatever blew up, radiation everywhere for miles and miles. But what happened that day? Who did what? What happened? You know, but make one modern day, make it interesting, and just tell the tale. And it might be a damn good blockbuster and get Oscars and whatever kind of awards you want to make up, you know, and all that. And put some actors in there that are fairly new, you know, get some of them that are fairly old that's not really recognized or known. You know, it's kind of like what's going on right now. Some of the celebrities we got weren't really known long ago, but now they're everywhere. You know, they're like Homelander or something. You know, they're all these people that you wouldn't expect were losers back in the day or just wasn't recognized, you know. So, because they didn't have main character roles. But that's a whole different story and a whole different show. But the point is, they should do one of Chernobyl.
Yep, you heard that right. The cows created radioactive milk. Now in 2018, it was said that Ukraine still has radioactivity levels up to 5 times the official safe limit, research suggests. Now scientists sampled cow's milk from private farms and homes in the Ravine region, about 125 miles away from the site of the catastrophic explosion. Researchers found levels of radioactive caesium in milk above Ukraine's safe limit for adults of 100 becquerel per liter at 6 of 14 settlements settlements studied. Now, the highest levels found were about 500 BQ a liter, 5 times over the limit for adults, and more than 12 times that for the young. The study was carried out at the University of Exeter and the Ukrainian Institute of Agricultural Radiology. More than 30 years after the Chernobyl disaster, people are still routinely exposed to radioactive caesium when consuming locally produced staple foods, including milk, in Chernobyl-affected areas in Ukraine, said Dr.
So I don't think, even though she's saying that people are getting affected, I don't think no one lives right in the site of where it happened. I think they're still living out, regions outside of it, but the effect of what happened is far all over the place, like all over the whole area. I'm thinking maybe 50 miles around, and that's probably what happened. Like I said, I don't really know too much. This is why I'm showing this, but I just think this is wrong, if it is, to let people still live in that area. And then there's the part where there's good things, a positive side that happen about this thing. So far, the dogs are kind of a positive because you get to know what's going on around the area, and then in the future they'll be walking two-legged dog people with an army called "We're the dogs of Chernobyl. We must contact Felix leader," something like that. And yeah.
Dr. Irina Lebunska of University of Exeter. Though the level of soil contamination in the studied areas is not extremely high, radioactive caesium continues to accumulate in milk and other foods. Now, this is just one of the lasting effects, which is horrific. On a lighter note though, an endangered wild horse is making a comeback thanks to Chernobyl. The Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute called the Przewalski's horses the last truly wild horse. Its once large population that ranged across large areas of Asia and Europe was eventually reduced to almost nothing. When Lee Boyd and Catherine A. Hope edited a book about the animal in 1994, the most recent wild sighting had occurred in the late 60s, leading the authors to declare them extinct in the wild. But British
See, this is good because this animal was going extinct. This horse was going extinct. Special horse, large horse, probably related more towards a Clydesdale, because they say it's a large horse, so you can tell it's kind of big. And so I'm thinking that this was a positive. Somehow the radiation and all that from Chernobyl was able to keep this species going and able to overpopulate. It's a beautiful thing. So even when there's bad, there's always something good. That's not just a lesson that's taught to people. This is a lesson that's taught by nature and life. Something disasterful happened and was able to bring back a whole different species and make it even more stronger. That's what I'm saying. It's good and the bad, and then there's bad and the good. You gotta figure out how you can find it out for yourself.
British ecologists Mike Wood and Nick Beresford, who specialize in studying the effects of radiation on Chernobyl's wildlife, observed that the Przewalski's horses is thriving within the exclusion zone. In the late 1990s, about 30 of these horses were released in the Ukrainian side of the zone, and the population has increased to more than 200. Based on camera trap images, Wood estimated that some of the original horses, identified by their brand markings, are still alive, and photos of juvenile horses also indicate that the population is expanding. And finally, if you didn't know, Earth has both a magnetic field and an atmosphere that protects us from dangerous radiation. Now, NASA knows that astronauts on the International Space Station get exposed to 20 times the radiation we get down here on the planet. So after discovering that a fungus thriving around the heavily radiated Chernobyl disaster site consumes radiation through radiosynthesis, they decided to experiment with it in space, and over the course of a month they
So the positive, because she said astronauts gets 20 times more radiation than we get on Earth. So with that being said, is Chernobyl still good enough for humans? If an astronaut can get 20% more radiation, it's like more radiation in space than there is on Earth. So somewhere in there, the oxygen's got to be somewhat stable. Without, oxygen might not even be the issue. And they said they did soil samples, but what you're looking at right here, and they're about to talk about this, and I kind of paused it right in the middle of them explaining it, but mushrooms are a good way to clean soil toxins, and get toxins out of the soil. And so if Chernobyl has a lot of mushrooms, it's because the soil is being naturally cleansed by nature. Another one to make the soil real good is to put sunflower seeds and stuff. What was the other one? There's another one besides that. But mushrooms is the number one thing to suck up soil. And then it would be like sunflower seeds and plants or whatever. You can make iron rich soil by putting iron in there. But I don't know about the stuff that they got going on right now with the radiation. I don't know if that works because then all the metal would be radiated too. Or maybe we have more. I don't know how that works because metal doesn't really absorb it, but metal can be very effective and already has toxins of its own. So, very interesting. There's like several plants though that, besides mushrooms and stuff, that cleans toxins out of the soil. There's a big one that I remember. I can't figure it out right now. And I know I wrote it around somewhere in this nerd cave of man thing and all this. I have no idea where the hell it is. But honestly, that's how you clean up soil toxins.
Found out that the fungus actually blocks radiation literally by eating it. The experiments on the ISS revealed that it was utilizing melanin to transform radioactive gamma rays.
That means everybody's black.
Into chemical energy. Now this is actually really exciting because this ability may turn out to be useful in future space exploration. NASA is hoping that the fungus may be used to both shield equipment and the crew from deadly radiation during long space flights, and even more importantly, help clean up radioactive waste. Well, that's all for our list of unsettling creatures.
Okay, so what did we learn today? A disaster that can kill everybody. There's actually seriously something you can't blame people on, but maybe the fact that they decided to work with nuclear waste and stuff anyway to make a power plant might be the only wrong choice they made here. The bad choice, of course, is still leaving life in that zone, but these are all things that are habitable to that area. Like that's their habitation, except for the dogs. You left the dogs there, now the dogs on that whole area. And it's the only thing close to humans anyway, because dogs and cats and humans always together. So if there's dogs by themselves and they're grouping and breeding in a big army, then like I said, yes, it's about 1,500 years from now there will be dog people, soldier dog people, and they'll say, we're from Chernobyl, we came from Chernobyl. Well, we are from Fearless Leader, we're looking for Moose and Strel, there's always Moose and Strel, you know? And then you get the horse people now, there's all these giant horses and cows, and so they come, we're the cows of Chernobyl, we are very into nuclear power, you know? I was like, I keep trying to change my voice. But anyway, yes, we need weapons of mass destruction, so... I'm more practicing changing my voice and sound like I'm from Russia or Ukraine instead of trying to explain what I'm talking about. I picked this, okay, and it's me explaining what I'm talking about. I picked this because it's good to understand issues that happen. Those are the results after Chernobyl. This is the results. There's all these mutated animals repopulating themselves back into nature, the environment changing, and not in a bad way, but in an interesting way, with trees that don't really die, and animals that don't really shrink, that grow to mass proportions, and everything's radiated, you know? And so, you want to watch stuff like this to understand what may happen in a place near you or where you may be at any given time. But the only problem is when some kind of disaster happens, you don't really know what the hell it is. Sometimes you can be in an earthquake and not even know there's an earthquake going on. I had that happen to me twice. And, like, serious, I'm so serious, it really did. You know, the first time the dogs was barking, I was like, shut the hell up and all this. I had no idea that I was sleeping through an earthquake. But I did. And another time I was in there and people said, oh, you're drinking, hey, you made it up. I didn't make it up. I was drinking, all of a sudden that dang van and stuff started moving, all this. And I was in a mini earthquake and didn't even know it until I watched the news. And, yeah, it happens, but I'm saying like shit like this, when it happened it had to be big. It had to be a big explosion and everything. And so, you know, no time to think, you gotta run. And so, with that, it's something that you gotta prepare for, but you can't prepare. And if you think about these natural disasters, you gotta prepare for them, like the hurricanes or the floods or oh, you can't prepare for any of these things. You'll never know whenever your time comes, or whenever the time comes for these disasters to start, doing their thing, tornadoes, all that. I mean, go on, Sharknadoes, you know, and these things happen. But the thing that bothers me most and what made me think about this is how I see all these places that are abandoned, and they look like they were torn down by, a war or some kind of explosion stuff. So, and the thing is, that's not even something that happened. What happened was they were forced out of their homes by government or something like that. And so you gotta think, is that a natural disaster for a human, for a whole town to be evacuated? Is that the big thing that is affecting the people, the human condition? Is getting told no and getting things taken from you that don't belong to the person that's taking it from you. Does this feel right to you? If not, then it's just not morally right by God either. And so, I just believe we gotta always be cautious, always be prepared, and always feel like we can survive anything by being prepared and looking out for those that are not aware and trying to make them aware of certain issues that can protect them from being harmed in any type of way. And with me saying all that, you already know what time it is. Shout out to this girl with the glasses that's on this video because she's very interesting, as well as everything else in this video. So shout out to the creator of this video. And shout out to all of y'all that stay with me, that subscribe to me. It means a lot, It feels good to have some kind of audience. And, I hope that you guys will spread the videos that I show, and maybe we can come up with something good as a community. So, peace be with you again. Show me out.